Dear colleagues and participants, good morning. On behalf of the Livenarch Committee, we would like to warmly welcome you all to keynote speaker Alper Derinboğaz presentation. Before we begin, we would like to present a brief biography about him. Alper Derinboğaz has been recognized as an influential architect in Turkey and Europe. After completing his master's degree in UCLA, he worked in Los Angeles until 2011, before returning to Istanbul to found his architecture practice Salon. His projects vary from large-scale cultural institutions to art installations and have received many international awards, including the German Design Award and the Plan Award for Innovative Architecture. He was selected in 2019 as one of the most important 40 young architects of Europe. His works are recognized as innovative, thought-provoking, and exciting, investigating the possibilities of the physical environment through the relationship between space and time. Among his many works is the new Museum of Istanbul, currently under construction. He is frequently invited to events as a speaker, and his works are widely published and exhibited in global art and architectural publications and exhibitions, including the 2014 Venice Architectural Biennale. He also teaches architectural and urban design studios in several universities as an adjunct professor. Now we will listen to Alper Derinboğaz for his presentation.
Thank you for expansive introduction. I'll try to live it up to the introduction. Today I will talk about spatial ecologies. This is a concept that is inspired from nature and our relationship with nature. Every architect, I think every artist or creator is kind of interested in certain ideas that kind of defines their engagement with life and surrounding and with their story. So I think this is kind of what is inside my practice in making my practice, what I will talk about. So we define this term as geospaces, and it is we try to reach geospaces through spatial ecologies. It's kind of a methodic approach. It is not a finalized project, or it's not a concrete solution, but this is, I think, a question mark, an important question mark in my profession, and we have been trying to frame it in this sense. And I can share a couple of slides. I'll try to cut it brief, so we can have Q&A session. So please. When I'm talking about spatial ecologies, what are we talking about? Really is our relationship with nature. We have been on Earth for a very long time, but as a civilization, but we have been on Earth for a much longer time as Homo sapiens, as an iteration of animals, let's say, and there has been a lot of other type of beings have been living on Earth for that much longer time. So this is kind of a time scale in this regard. We can see 66 million years ago how the first organic beings have been created on Earth, and As architects, we are very good at scaling things. So what we find it interesting is we can also scale the time and look at our current time. We can look at the future. We can look at the history in a much in much different scales. So this kind of comes from the profession, I think. But if we look close, if you use this kind of reflex in the time scale, in the time zone, in a certain time frame, then it can give us other clues. So we try to look at the world, humankind being on Earth in a different way, and this kind of is showing that when we are talking about nature, we usually try to save the planet, save the nature, save animals, and all sorts of all this kind of sort. But in essence, I think it's a completely destructive idea, completely manipulated point of view. We are very egoistic beings as our nature, and then when we talk about saving planet, actually what we are talking about is saving us, ourselves. If you look at the time scale, we have been on Earth on a very, very thin layer of time. So this is a very critical point. This is a very critical zone that we are being on Earth in this slim zone, because this means we are almost by luck have been surviving on Earth. And when we are disrupting Earth systems, let's say, we are disrupting our living in world in this Earth, let's say. So this kind of gives us a different perspective when we are working on different projects, and I'll try to walk you through this idea. When we look more, if we look more closely to our civilized history, we have been living on buildings, as we know, for a very short time. But we are against the time that we spend on these buildings. We are extremely comfort seeking. So we are living in buildings almost like submarines. We are expecting extreme levels of comfort. We are expecting extreme scale of isolation and all this sort, because we are living in a comfort age. And this kind of really manipulates the way we build spaces. But if you look in history, we have been living in different forms of space, different type of spaces on Earth, from caves to trees to open nature, or light structures, structures from Earth, and all this variation. And I think these kind of ways used to frame a better relationship with the Earth, with the world, with our surrounding, and we kind of lost this. I don't propose going back to historic livings, but I think there are major mistakes we are making in this making, and this is the most important evidence of the mistakenly built environment. Because in today's world, we are traveling, we are fabricating fashion, we are fabricating cars and all that kind of transportation. But if you compare it to where we live, the buildings, the building operations is an immense amount of carbon dioxide caused by carbon emissions caused by buildings and architecture. This is a tremendous amount. I mean, we spend a lot of carbon footprint. We are very carbon costly, let's say, as builders, as makers of buildings. compared to all the other things. We have a huge responsibility, and I think we kind of have certain notions that's not exactly where they should have been. And we have been trying to question this thing mainly in our profession. How can we relate to Earth more intelligent way, let's say. And we have been trying to develop different relationships. One of examples that we started to convey this idea is in 2016 in Science Island in Kaunas. This was an international competition where we won an award, but beyond the competition, this was very defining study for our practice. Because the Science Island was located in a very nice natural setting, is an island. It is at the city center. It is very beautiful island, and people use it for different cases. And there's a habitat already inside the island. So we wanted to come up with an idea that's not against nature, but that's together with nature. So we wanted to propose some new way of relationship with the island, with the nature. When we look closely in doing that, when we look closely into what we call nature, we started to notice a couple of things. The most important thing was the morphology of the island. It is mainly beyond the island form. It's mainly defined by trees, tree clusters. Tree clusters behave almost like architectural definition of spaces. So people play volleyball in between certain trees. They go for picnic in certain areas and all sorts of other things. And we thought if we are able to understand how the trees are clustering, we could propose a type of scales that is based on these kind of forms of trees, and this would give a scale relationship with the islands. We could generate a scale relationship with the surrounding and the nature, and this kind of is showing a moment from this study. This is a plan that emerged from this approach and this scale operation. And when we went into more detailing the building, we come up with these tree clusters which doesn't have openings, which doesn't have a relationship with outside. So we wanted to also carry this idea of relationship with nature into the skin level. So we looked at skins, organic skins, and looking at those, we come across Alan Turing's morphogenesis approach, morphogenesis theorem, let's say, where he wanted to make a mathematical background for these organic forms and relationships. And by replicating this, we were able to generate openings and surfaces that kind of relates to surrounding as in a more natural way. But doing this is not a completely new thing. We have to admit. There are many in historic great points that this has been an turning point, we believe, and one of this is San Carlino in Rome. This is a rather, compared to Spain, is a rather small and manipulated kind of form for a kind of building and church. When you hear the name, you expect much larger or more kind of a grand building, but in comparison, it is quite small. But the beauty of it, I think, comes from how it is able to in a small zone and manipulated site, which is not ideal for church building maybe, or maybe it's not the greatest church building site, let's say. But Borromini, by the time a young, very ambitious architect, painter, and also sculptor, was a strategy that defines the shapes, makes new forms, and but it still is based on the same genetic code of the Trinity plan. So it still is a church, but recreated from its main ideas. So there's a genetic point that this idea is rooted from. Another example, maybe we tested a similar idea, was augmented structures, which we have built together with Refik Anadol, which we have designed and built together with Refik Anadol in 2011. Maybe the time is important, because in 2011 we didn't, at least to that date, we didn't see this kind of large-scale installation combined with digital footage. What you see here is a physically constructed three-dimensional surface. This surface is generated through a lot of analysis of Istiklal Street ground repair by the time, and we wanted to extract variations of acoustic recordings, and we wanted to develop it on the surface, so it gives a sense of it gives a physicality to three-dimensional. It gives a physicality to acoustic environment of the square of the Istiklal Street, and be projected into Yapı Kredi Culture Center. This was one of the very experimental works by the time, and this became real by a lot of constraints. We needed to build it in a very short time. We needed to build it in pieces. We needed to combine it with digital surface, so we didn't have any chance of making mistakes. So it needed to be completely same as the three-dimensional form that's generated in PC. So designing it was a big challenge. Fabricating the surface was another challenge, and these are kind of residue from the process where we tried to capture the precise three-dimensional morphology and translate it into surface. And you can see how CNC and all the CAD/CAM technologies were applied in the process. There's a small video. The voices. If you can hear the voice of the installation, but this is online, and maybe if you are curious, you can go ahead and see the whole performance. So time and the three-dimensional surface comes together and becomes the architectural experience together. In that sense, I think it's a very interesting example in our practice also. Another project in Istiklal Street, in Istanbul, Istiklal Street, very close by to this Yapı Kredi Culture Center, was Fitaş Passage. So this project was also kind of very much related with the facade, but beyond facade, it was a passage, but it is not being used as a passage for a very long time. It has been movie theater, it has been shopping mall, it has been offices and variety of things. But together with touristification of the whole Istiklal Street, the building also lost this engagement with the street because all the buildings became showcases, windows, shopping windows, let's say. The Istiklal Street turned into huge shopping mall, buildings turning on the ground floor typologies. So it was very, when we came into the project, it was none of the buildings on top floors were able to use them. There is no offices being used, or there is no residential functions being functioning. And this kind of was sad for us. And we wanted to change this, and we wanted to give the vertical working nature of Istiklal Street again. And we looked at previous pictures, previous morphology of the Istiklal Street, where they use the spaces extensively in the vertical dimension. And the signboards have been were reminding us this kind of use. So we wanted to give the, we wanted to keep the essence of this time and translate it into building somehow. But beyond that, we also wanted to revive the passage idea of the Istiklal Street and the Kurabiye Street behind. So these would be, the building would again function as a passage where a street goes through the building. This makes it, this brings in a lot of variety into functions. So it doesn't only become a, it doesn't only end up being a vertical building, but the street goes through. So street and building becomes one, and this kind of brings a new variety of spaces, also public spaces, into buildings, and buildings into streets. So we thought this was important to mix the public spaces together with the street. So there's a texture on the surface. There's a spatial way of porosity on the surface. So it goes up to the top floor in a different sense. So it kind of inspires you to go up into the building, we hope, at least. Another project, we were seeking for a relationship with the surrounding, with time, and the space was Ecotone. So here in this project, we usually try to find relationship with the context, but in this case, we wanted to create continuity between building components. So when we are designing a building, we have certain building elements. We have spaces, we have empty spaces, we have full spaces, or we have elements like ceiling, walls, partitions, slabs, and all sorts of building elements. But we wanted to seek a continuity between these, so it becomes a holistic structure. In doing that, we were mainly concerned by earthquake because this building was proposed in a zone where we were not able to make foundations, so it would be a standing alone building. And in this case, we wanted to come up with an idea that works against earthquake, that is safe for earthquakes, but it is also not heavy, or it doesn't exactly fight the earthquake, but it works with the earthquake. So it becomes a more slender, more fluid space in that sense. And this is what we came up with. We come up with a column column connection idea that is only thick where it is needed, and it is much narrow where it is not needed. So we kind of come up with an optimized column idea. Also, the spaces, the project is designed during the pandemic time. The spaces are, have a lot of spaces, meeting rooms that's outside, that's open out of the building. We also have spaces segregated in different pieces, so people can see each other, be still together, but they can be also in different rooms. So we give a lot of importance to make a new type of office building where people can work together, feel together, enjoy together, but they are not necessarily in the same, exactly same air condition. So they are all, they all have their zones, which is much more healthy for pandemic situation. And it's also nice because we thought it's also nice because you can use a lot of exterior spaces extensively, and open spaces almost behave like closed spaces. So this was important to us. Learning Sky is another project. We recently won an award in another international competition in Korea, in Songdo. The city of future is called. Here we looked at the main libraries of the Asian culture. We see a lot of the libraries, they don't have the exact Western library concept in East, in Asia, let's say. And by the time we go into subject deeper, we discovered they have reading gardens rather than libraries, reading buildings. So we wanted to come up with an idea that is more of open spaces rather than closed spaces, and we actually are able to give a lot of nice places where you can read and enjoy the nature. And this was our main basic movement point. Along the way, we looked at the surrounding, and then we discovered that it is located in context with a lot of innovation centers, some maker spaces, some factory buildings, and all that, which give us the feeling that maybe here, if you are making the future of the library, then maybe it's not only about books, but it's also about making. So the making of the building is also part of this process. And we come up with this idea where we build the building with 3D printers, because we believe printing changed, the circulation of information changes a lot of things. And the information is not only written, it is sometimes three-dimensional, sometimes fabricated, and 3D printing is knowledge of form. And if we believe, if we come up with an idea that is kind of also inspiring for making, then this would be a culture for throughout the experience. And this is the building process. Basically, we came up with different strategies to make it connected with the city, but also beyond that, we wanted to create a spatial grid that's mainly focused on 3D printing, and this became the structure. But on the street level, against the cityscape, it is very low. It's quite a low-rise building. it has an attitude against the high rises and isolated spaces. This kind of tries to be a space and tries to be a place, a destination rather than a container. So we wanted to also come up with this kind of influence in the making. This is a picture from the garden. This is how we plan the nature of the building. This is modalities of spontaneous. Maybe root idea that kind of shapes our practice. Root research, let's say. We were invited as one of the exhibitors in Turkish Pavilion in the first debut attendance of Turkey into Venice Biennale in 2014, where Rem Koolhaas was the curator of the Biennale. It is called modalities of spontaneous because we were looking at Istanbul, we were looking at different cities, and we were trying to understand what spontaneity comes from in the cities. So when we look at different samplings of the city from different zones, we have seen similarities in between these spaces. So there's a geographical condition where you have a waterway, and this used to be before owned by farmers. They become industrial zones, they become office buildings, plazas, and so on in specific Istanbul case. And we have seen this is repeating pattern in a lot of different locations, and then we started to discover some underlying geographical conditions resulting in this. So we depicted 6 frames from this understanding of the space, and we came up with this kind of formal studies to give to understand the making of the becoming of the city, and we developed different frames through that. By the time we were working on the project, after we worked on the project, obviously, we were invited for a competition for Istanbul City Museum in 2015, and still up to date, we are working on the project. The project came after Venice Biennale, our Venice Biennale exhibition, and we were already thinking about, we were already trying to understand how the geography in correlation with history makes the cities. And if we propose, if we understand these relationships, we could propose better spaces, better buildings for the future. And this was one of, I think, more concrete examples in that sense. The Istanbul City Museum is located in Topkapı, next to the urban land walls, not the Topkapı Palace, but the Topkapı as district, where we are close to Altınkapı, Yedikule, and Sulukule area. And when we look at the building, when we look at the location, we have seen a lot of different layers of the history coming together in this location, and we thought this is a very strong connection. We looked at the urban land walls. It's a very important heritage. It's not a building, it's not a palace, it's not a hammam or mosque, but I think it's a very important infrastructural element. Our history, the city history, is not only created by the great buildings or public buildings, but also this gives a very important clue of engineering, infrastructure, and how the strategies of the cities are developed. And we positioned the building. The building location was given to us. We positioned the interior of the building in relation with the city walls. So we tried to develop this idea, this relationship with the city walls, and we connected this entrance access to the public transport hubs, and it became, and we used a lot of the contextual formations to reflect on the building, and then we came up with this square type of building, but much diverse in the interior, because of the exterior context, the relationship with the land walls. We brought in a different dimension into building, and this was kind of creating a dialogue. We didn't want this to be a clash, but we preferred it becoming a guiding outline for us. So through that we were able to develop very high spans of structure, so we were able to create a lot of space for exhibitions. We also take this idea further. We created internal divisions, interior furnitures, library, the salon, the kids atelier, cafes, restaurants, and all these kind of spaces were generated through the same approach. It was kind of a modulation of the same idea, and beyond that, beyond what we see, there was a lot of these are pictures from the facade. Beyond the scene, there's also a lot of spaces for storage, for laboratories, for infrastructural elements, because we think it's very important to create infrastructure, foundation spaces beyond the public spaces. What we see as buildings, as museums in our context, is usually the visible part, but beyond the visible part, the building needs to work nicely so it can serve the community for longer years. We are not working to make the museum into a single exhibition, but we are looking to see how a living museum can be created. And this is, again, some residue from the process. This is, I think, our inspiration from the land walls. We wanted to see how different layers of making combined in the same surface can come up with a spatial new context, because this is not only the facade of the building, but also part of the city, part of the square, part of the context. So we wanted to bring in different layers into the facade, and we wanted to make it visible. And this has been under construction since 2016. We are about 70% of the completion of the building, and it is still going. We went through some, the building went through some economic setbacks, and now together with İmamoğlu, it is going for the next stage of bidding. So it is aimed to be completed in a year time. This is from the facade mock-up. We are looking for a materiality that reflects the surrounding, because it's located inside a very nice park. We hope it is going to reflect the surrounding, reflect the weather, reflect Istanbul on the surface. And we are working really hard to make this scrap-free, let's say, as much as we try to evaluate as much possible the existing materials into the building. And we work with a variety of consultants from London New Technique to Peter Bauer and Vienna to Istanbul Balkar. We are working with a lot of different layers of engineers, consultants. Luca Molinari is the curator, Italian, very famous, important editor and curator has been working on the exhibition for many years, and it has been worked out more than 200 professionals up to date, and it's a very important project for us. And maybe it's nice to close it with a small video of it. I don't know if the sound is hearable. Oh. So maybe I jump a little faster in case you don't hear the sound. Like I said, it is located in the next to the historic urban historic island. This becomes very important because this is the building very iconically located in the breaking point of the city, where we end the historic city and the modern city starts, and this is right and reach. And this is an important, we thought this is an important thing to emphasize in the making. And there's a welcoming bridge. Invites people inside. There's an atrium at the entrance, and there are different divisions of the city. It simulates how we meet with Istanbul through sea, because a lot of the visitors come from the sea, and we wanted to see how it would be reflected onto the experience of visiting the city. And beyond everything, it's this people's museum. It's Istanbul Public's museum. So it reflects people's stories also. And it ends up with the contemporary Istanbul, how we are living the city, how it is being affected, how it is being reflected, and how we are interacting with the city is the end of the exhibition. And it is, the exhibition is ending by the city itself. So when you go up to the terrace, you are able to see the historical context together with the modern Istanbul. And I didn't do everything on my own. There has been a lot of people we have been working together. So I think this is mainly my presentation. I wanted to leave some space for Q&A. We also test these ideas in school. We are inspired by a lot of great writers, from Timothy Morton to Graham Harman, in making our ideas. Donna Haraway is a very important writer, researcher, scientist. She's talking a lot about how we have a strength, how we are having a relationship crisis with the earth, with our surrounding. I'm very much inspired by that. Bernard Caché, Earth Moves, is a very inspiring publication again. I think giving a lot of clue about how our cities in Turkish context, in our geographic context, have a spatial relationship with the geography and how they're correlated. Lefebvre is, of course, always a great inspiration for our making. More contemporary examples like Benjamin Bratton, the Stake, the new normal, he has been a very speculative writer with in a lot of variety of things. Super Studio, they haven't built any buildings, but they have been extremely influential in architecture, in also our practice. I recommend students to look at it extensively. And of course, Livenarch, he experimented a lot. He again didn't build anything, but he was able to inspire more buildings than any living architects maybe. And he has been also an inspiration for us. So the list goes on. I hope you enjoyed my presentation. Maybe it's better if we leave time for question and answers. Thank you.
Hello again. I would like to thank you, Alper Derinboğaz, for this great presentation. Thank you very much. Now, I think there are 3 questions in Q&A. If you want, you can answer them. And dear attendees, if you want a question, ask a question, you can write there. Okay.
So should we start from the last question or?
Which one you want? Which one you want? Okay. If you want, I can read.
Yeah, I mean, the question is, how do you define others in these spatial works? Other in the spatial works, are they kind of other things in the environment? If yes, how? Yes, otherness. I think Alson is referring to post-anthropocentric understanding of our work. I think it's very important to understand our relationship with the other. Other, I think, as a definition, comes from non-relationshipness, but so there's no. We expect there to be no relationship with the other, but I think more and more we are discovering we are actually connected with everything from coughing to buildings. When we do something, we influence each other, and other things influence us. So I think we are heading towards an understanding of as human species, not individual beings, but the continuity of a fabric, almost a living organism as communities. So I think we are more connected than we understand. So that maybe is the answer for the other, I hope.
The next one, yes, Serap Öztürk.
Serap Öztürk has a question. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for inviting. You focused on the relationship between nature and architecture. Which one can you define as other in this relationship and why? How do spatial ecologies define an other in this context? Yes, I think I kind of responded to this together with Asuhan's question. The other, I think we can fabricate a lot of different relationships. We are able to connect with everything. As human, we are very flexible, and for the otherness, we like to define certain things, certain negative things, and we like to leave them on the other side in our project making. So maybe this is an answer, I hope, as far as I understand the question. Aysun, both your projects and contemporary architecture are moving towards an architecture that's compatible with nature. But interestingly, the international art and fashion sector shows that I have watched recently are always held in the city and collapse reinforced concrete buildings as a construction technique. Naturally, at the end of these activities, these structures come to the fore. How do you evaluate in this contradiction? Yes, that's a very important contradiction to remind, I think. Thank you. We also built concrete buildings. We recently used concrete for a villa. It's being completed in a couple of weeks, let's say. It is constructed on the idea of becoming ecological and friendly. How is this concrete? Yes, concrete is extremely carbon emitting, very problematic source of building, but it still is a very economic way of building buildings, unfortunately. But beyond that, there are, I don't believe in the material obsession in the making of sustainable spaces, because in our case, for example, it was very sustainable in a way, because we were able to increase the heat mass comparing to any wooden or steel building. We were able to increase the heat mass maybe 10 times bigger or so, and this let us climatize the space without using active climate control. We also use çeşmes. The project is located in Çeşme, in Izmir. We used also natural winds in the making of the project, so we were able to take the wind inside the building, so we were passively cooling down the building. So it is together with without any air conditioning, we were able to climatize the whole building throughout the whole year. So this was an important income in terms of carbon spendings. So what I'm trying to mean is, I think we cannot go for single material in the making without really understanding the local context. But in your case, I understand, as sake of fashion, we use a lot of disruptive things. But I think fashion is not a leading creative industry or leading creative zone. It is not like arts, it's not like architecture or literature. It is already designed to be consumed. We consume a lot of other things, but fashion is intended to be consumed much faster. So I don't think there's too much thinking about it, and I don't think it's my favorite area to work on. But thank you for bringing up the contradiction.
Thank you for your answers. I think, is there any question? No? Okay. If you want, we can finish this part. Thank you very much for your attendees. The next session will start 11 o'clock. See you later.
Thank you for inviting. It was a pleasure.